In this video, I'm going to give you recommendations for manuals and books that you should have to use for reference for training, and some that you should have with you inside your rucksack so that you have them available for reference during operations. You should read these manuals now during peacetime so that you have the information at least in your knowledge before combat operations would begin, and then have a copy of it available to you like in your rucksack so that you can pull it out and review it if you need to know that information for a coming operation. When I was in the military, we used to carry manuals with us inside our vehicles. Inside our squad vehicles, we would have a box or a shelf depending on the type of vehicle, and inside that box or on that shelf would be a batch of manuals that we could pull out and we could reference. It could be a technical manual for a particular type of mine layer system. It could be a doctrinal manual on minefields or field fortifications. But we had the information available to us if we had to review it. The ones that I am showing you right now are ones that I recommend that you have inside your rucksack so that you can pull them out and review them or use them during operations or during your downtime before an operation. First off, I recommend everybody get a hold of a Common Task Manual. Particular STP 21-1-SMCT, Soldier's Manual of Common Tasks, Skill Level 1. The 1994 edition is the most complete I'm aware of. The newer editions, which are typically known as Warrior Task Manuals or Warrior Skills Manuals, they have more up-to-date information on the technical stuff like the newer weapon systems, night vision, and so forth, but they had a tendency to leave out field craft and land navigation and nuclear, biological, chemical tasks that you should know. It does not hurt to have both of them, but as to which one you should carry in your rucksack, because you're not going to carry both, that's going to be up to you. Now, the next type of manual that you should carry with you inside your rucksack is one for your weapon system, for your weapon or weapons. If you have a military surplus weapon, get a hold of the military manual for that weapon, the technical manual for that weapon. If you have a civilian version type weapon, you should get the owner's manual, but not all companies put out owner's manuals. Some of them will only put them out online. They will not make paper copies. So in that case, if your weapon is based on a military issue weapon, try to get a hold of the military manual for the military version of that weapon so you at least have something available that you can reference to find out troubleshooting tasks for if there is a malfunction or a particular problem with the weapon that immediate action was not able to clear up. It'll also show you what parts you should get a hold of for doing repairs. This particular one is for the M16, the M16A2. They would change these every few years when there was a change with the weapon system or an update in some of the parts or one of the procedures. Another thing I recommend that everyone have inside their bags is a pocket road atlas. This particular one covers the United States, Canada, and Mexico. The reason you have this is so if you hear about something happening in another location, you can pull this out and try to find that location on a map. So if you hear about something's going on over in, let's say, Hogville, Arkansas, and you're in Missouri, you can pull this out, look up the map of Arkansas, find out where Hogsville is, maybe figure out, you know, if the enemy's there and they're moving in your direction, try to figure out how long you have till they're going to show up. The next manual was mandatory for non-commissioned officers and officers in the military, that we had to have these inside our rucksacks when they're in the field. I recommend for all militia engineers you have a copy of this with you at all times inside your rucksack. And that is FM 5-34 Engineer Field Data. My only recommendation as for which edition to get is you get the newest one that you possibly can, so that you have the most up-to-date information on the technical aspects, especially when dealing with landmines and ordnance. As you can see, these are very thick manuals. You're not going to memorize all this, but you should be able to at least have it available that you can pull it out, look it up for reference when you're planning operations. Now, another thing I recommend that you get a hold of is TaxOps, or Tactical Standard Operating Procedure books. This first one I'm going to show you here was one that was issued by one of the units I was in, so I'm not going to show you the cover because it says the unit. But you can see the type of information that's inside them. You will typically find TaxOps for companies, battalions, and brigades. Try to get a hold of the company level ones, because that'll give you more of the individual skills, where the battalion will give you more of the company type aspects of it, the basic battle drills for a platoon and that. You want more for the individual troop and the squads. Now, another thing you can get a hold of is infantry TaxOps. These will give you basic information on doing ambushes, planning for defenses, planning for raids, planning for patrols. These are good to get a hold of for having that as a reference. Now, one of the reasons you should get a hold of TaxOps is so you can see what's been done in the past, what you want to try to copy inside your unit. I highly recommend each unit makes their own TaxOp. Control the issuing of the TaxOp so you do not have too many copies out there that a potential enemy could get a hold of, especially during combat operations. Here's an example of one that a militia put together. I think it's a militia up in Canada, because when you actually look at the information that's inside, it deals primarily with the Canadian Army and northern U.S. military units like the 10th Mountain Division up at Fort Drum, New York, and the 6th Infantry Division up in Alaska. But basically, you take the information from the actual military units, come up with what works best for you, modify the tasks, and you make your own for your unit. Now, the next manuals I'm going to show you are ones that you should have for referencing now for training. You don't necessarily want to carry these in a rucksack because of the size. The first one is FM 21-75 Combat Skills of the Soldier. This is the 1984 edition, where the Common Task Manual leaves off, this picks up. The Common Task Manual tells you the individual skills. This tells you how to take those individual skills and use them in operations as a squad, as a platoon, as a company. This particular book has some of the best illustrations and explanations for urban warfare that I've ever read. Yes, the information's dated, but considering the type of equipment that'll be available to us, it'll cover that era of what we have available, especially in the beginning of a conflict. Because we won't necessarily have the latest radios, the latest weapon systems. We won't necessarily have miniguns and mortars and heavy artillery. All our stuff's going to be pretty light and semi-automatic, which would fit in with that 84 edition of 21-75. The next thing I highly recommend all militia engineers get a hold of is a engineer task manual for your particular job. If you're a combat engineer, you want a combat engineer manual. If you're a construction engineer, you want a construction engineer manual for vertical or horizontal, depending on the type you are. Or if you're a topographical engineer or you're a bridger. The one that I have here, I have not seen many copies of this. I lucked out when I found a copy. And that is FM 5-12B 1-2. Combat Engineer Skill Manual, and this was made in 1977. And you can see it's thick like a big city phone book. Those will have your basic information that you need to know as an engineer. For the combat engineer manuals, they will tell you the steps for putting in particular landmines, the tasks you need to know when doing demolitions, what's the safety procedures, the misfire procedures, how you prime something, how you set something up, and how you lay out your charges to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Are you making a road crater? Are you making an abattis? You're trying to fall trees? Or are you trying to breach walls? That type of stuff will be inside FM 5-34 and also in those common task manuals for combat engineers. The construction engineer ones would obviously cover how to build roads, how to plumb a house, how to frame a house, how to put in the electrical systems. The bridge crewmen will tell you how to use different types of bridging equipment and also how to build bridges using timbers. Get a hold of what you can, read it now, so that when you need to know the information, you've at least aware it's out there and hopefully what manual it's in. If it's one that's in your rucksack, you can then pull it out, read it, and reference it when you need to use the information, especially before operations. Now, for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and militia movements, always remember, essay ons.